That night, a voice, trembling and frail, whispered from the darkness, "Uncle, they've locked me up. I'm so scared." Then the line went dead. My blood ran cold, and I knew, instantly, that everything I thought I knew about my family was a lie. My name is Elias Turner, and I'm just an ordinary mechanic, 37 years old, living a quiet life in Bowling Green, Kentucky. My days were a steady rhythm of grease, metal, and the familiar faces of my wife, Hannah, and our 8-year-old rascal, Rocky. We lived in a small wooden house, nothing fancy, but it was ours, filled with laughter and the smell of Hannah's cooking. Life was stable, fulfilling, or so I believed, until that terrifying call ripped through the calm. But to truly understand the nightmare that unfolded, I have to take you back, because the seeds of this tragedy were sown long before. My younger brother, Jetson, was always the golden boy. 5 years my junior, brilliant, sensitive, the one our parents, Stone and Robin, showered with endless pride. Dad, a construction worker, would beam, "My boy's going to be an engineer, change our family's fortunes." Mom doted on him, saw herself in his quiet demeanor. I never felt jealous. Jetson was my little brother, my best friend. We shared everything, from rusty bikes to teenage secrets. When I was 18, I left for Bowling Green, found work, married Hannah, my high school sweetheart. Jetson stayed, excelled in college, became a mechanical engineer, married the beautiful Mia, and they had Zoe, their daughter, when he was just 28. The first time I held Zoe, she felt like a piece of Jetson, a tiny extension of his gentle soul. Big, round eyes, curly hair, a smile that could melt the world. Everything was perfect. Jetson had a high-paying job, a beautiful home in Nashville. We'd tease each other at Thanksgiving, "Don't forget your poor older brother now that you're rich," I'd joke. He'd laugh, clap me on the back, and promise to take care of the whole family. Those were the good times, the moments I believed nothing could break. Then disaster struck. It was an autumn evening. Jetson was 30. Mia was driving Zoe home when a drunk driver crashed head-on into their car. Mia died instantly. Zoe, miraculously, survived with minor injuries. But Jetson, my strong, brilliant brother, completely shattered. I drove like a madman from Bowling Green to Nashville, only to find him by Zoe's bedside, a ghost of his former self. "Mia, she's gone," he choked out, his voice broken beyond repair. I hugged him, my own heart splintering into a million pieces. Mia was everything to him. From that day, Jetson changed. He tried, at first, to be strong for Zoe, for us. But the pain was too deep. He started drinking, one glass to forget, then entire bottles. He quit his job, holed up, forgot to eat. I called him weekly, pleaded with him. "Jetson, you have to live for Zoe. She needs you." He'd promise, then relapse. One night, a drunken call at midnight. "Elias, I can't take it anymore. Why did life take Mia from me?" I listened, comforted him, but a crushing helplessness settled over me. My own life, my job, my family in Bowling Green kept me tethered. I couldn't save him. Things spiraled. Jetson started abusing sedatives, blurring his mind. Zoe, barely 3, began to fade. Her smile dimmed. She'd sit alone, clutching her mother's old toys. Our parents, who lived blocks away, stepped in. They picked Zoe up, feed her. Practical and image-conscious, my father wanted the family to appear perfect, while my mother, ever the martyr, spoke of her sacrifices. They urged Jetson into treatment, but he'd snap, "I can handle it." The last time I saw him before everything unraveled, he was slumped on his sofa, dark circles under his eyes, empty bottles everywhere. Zoe ran to me, "Uncle Elias, Daddy's always sleeping." My heart clenched. I dragged Jetson outside. "Snap out of it. Zoe needs you. If you can't, let me take her." He shook his head, tears streaming. "I can't be away from her, but I'm dying inside." I held him, promising help, but a cold dread told me the worst was coming. And it did. Early one morning, Mom's trembling voice, "Son, Jetson's gone." He'd left Zoe on their doorstep with a letter. I raced to Nashville. Jetson's messy scrawl, "Dad, Mom, Elias, I can't care for Zoe anymore. I need to heal. Please take care of her." Zoe, for years old, stood clutching her teddy bear, her eyes wide and lost. "Where's Daddy, Uncle?" I didn't know what to say. I just held her, my heart crushing under the weight of his abandonment. "Don't worry, sweetheart," I choked out, kneeling. "Uncle's here. Grandpa and Grandma will take care of you." My parents, Stone and Robin, stood on the porch. Mom, wiping tears. How could Jetson do this? I didn't blame him entirely. I knew his pain. But leaving Zoe like this, on the fragile line between hope and despair, it tore at me. "Mom, Dad," I managed, "you'll care for Zoe, right? She needs a stable home." My father nodded firmly. "Of course, Elias. She's our granddaughter." Mom added, "Don't worry, son. I'll treat Zoe like my own." I stayed a few days, helping them with the legal paperwork. They applied for guardianship, received a monthly foster care stipend of $500. "Our family's responsibility," Dad declared. I nodded, a sense of relief washing over me. They were my parents. I trusted them. At first, everything seemed fine. I went back to Bowling Green. Weekly calls to Mom and Dad. "Zoe's doing great, Elias. New dresses, cookies." Mom would chirp. "Took her to the park." Dad boasted. My heart warmed. Zoe was cared for, loved. My wife, Hannah, reassured me. "Your parents are adults. Zoe will be fine." Rocky, our son, couldn't wait to visit his cousin. I visited when I could, but the drive was long, work was hectic, Hannah had hospital shifts, and Rocky had soccer practice. Guilt gnawed at me, but I told myself, Mom and Dad have it handled. I settled for phone calls, listening to Robin's cheerful updates. "Zoe's learning to draw," she'd say. On rare visits, Zoe would light up, playing with Rocky in the yard. Watching them, I felt a fleeting sense of peace. Her smile was still there, her childish innocence intact. But I didn't realize beneath the surface, cracks were forming. About a year later, things shifted. Zoe wasn't as vibrant. She was thinner, her cheeks hollow, her skin pale. I asked, "Zoe, what did you eat?" She hesitated. "Bread and cheese." I turned to Robin, struggling for calm. "Mom, Zoe's too thin." She laughed it off. "Kids, Elias, she's picky." Dad chimed in. "We're taking good care of her. She's fine." But Zoe's eyes haunted me. They no longer sparkled. They were distant, searching. I started noticing small things. A new big screen TV, fancy handbags for Mom, Dad bragging about dining out. Where was the $500 stipend going? One time I suggested, "Let Zoe come to Bowling Green for a week." Mom immediately refused. "She's not feeling well. She's used to us." Dad added gruffly, "You and Hannah are so busy. We'll take care of her." I was frustrated, but didn't want to fight. They were my parents. I told myself to trust them, but the guilt never left. "Hannah, do you think Zoe's okay?" I'd ask at night. "Honey, your parents are adults. Zoe will be fine." But I couldn't shake the feeling I was failing her. I called more often, but they always said everything was fine. Zoe just ate a big meal. She's playing in the yard. I wanted to believe them, but my heart felt heavy. Jetson remained missing. I hired a private investigator, spent thousands, but nothing. He had vanished. Zoe sometimes asked, "Uncle Elias, why is Daddy taking so long?" I'd hug her, lie, "He'll be back soon." But I didn't know when or if. Time passed. Zoe turned 5, then 6. Each visit, she was thinner, quieter. Once she whispered, "Uncle, I want to live with you." I ruffled her hair. "I'll take you home soon, Zoe. Just wait for me." But when I mentioned it to my parents, they refused. "She's too weak, Elias." My suspicion grew. My parents, always practical and image-conscious, didn't want anyone to know Jetson abandoned his daughter. They certainly didn't want anyone thinking they weren't caring for her properly. But their true love for Zoe, I was no longer certain. My visits became less frequent. Life in Bowling Green was overwhelming. I told myself, as long as Mom and Dad are taking care of Zoe, I don't need to worry. I wanted to believe it, but that bad feeling intensified. I didn't know that the cracks in my family were deepening, that my parents were growing indifferent. The stipend, I now realized, was being misused. And Zoe, that poor little girl, was quietly suffering in the home that was supposed to be her haven. I never imagined that a year later, a phone call in the middle of a stormy night would shatter all my trust, plunging me into a nightmare I'd never forget. By the way, if you're still with me, Make sure to hit subscribe. More unbelievable stories are coming. That night, rain poured, thunder growled, lashing against our roof. I was exhausted from work. Hannah was asleep. Rocky was lost in 8-year-old dreams. I sat alone, trying to shake off a nagging unease. It had been 2 years since Jetson disappeared. Zoe, now 6, still with my parents. I called them days ago. Robin said, "Zoe's doing fine," but her voice had been rushed. I'd brushed it off. Then the phone rang. A sharp, jarring sound in the midnight quiet. An unfamiliar number, but Nashville's area code. My heart pounded. "Hello," I whispered. On the other end, a trembling, tiny voice, as if from another world. "Uncle Elias, I'm locked up. I'm so hungry. I'm scared." It was Zoe. Her voice was frail, halting, as if holding back sobs. I froze. "Zoe, where are you? Locked up? How? Tell me." Only static. Then the line went dead. I called back. Ring, ring, ring. Nothing. Panic surged, a tidal wave drowning all reason. I shook Hannah awake. "Hannah," Zoe called. "She's locked up. I'm going to Nashville now." Hannah sat up, eyes heavy. What's wrong?" "Call your parents first." My hand shook so badly I nearly dropped the phone. My parents' number. It rang and rang. No answer. I tried Mom's mobile. Still nothing. My heart felt like it was being crushed. Zoe was in danger. I could feel it, real as the biting cold rain outside. "Hannah, I'm going. Stay here with Rocky," I shouted, grabbing my keys, not waiting for her response. The rain lashed my windshield like blades. The wipers barely cleared a path. The hour-long drive felt endless. I floored the gas. Tires screeched on the slick road. Thunder roared, but couldn't drown out the pounding in my chest. Locked up, hungry, scared. Those words swirled in my head. Where are my parents? How could they let Zoe call me like that? Her voice so terrified. I thought of my visits, Zoe's lost eyes, her frail body. I had ignored those signs, trusted my parents. Now I wanted to punch myself for my stupidity. The highway was pitch black. My headlights cut through the thick rain. I tried calling Zoe's number again, then my parents. Nothing. Maybe they're asleep. Maybe Zoe's just scared of the storm. But deep down I knew something was terribly wrong. Zoe wasn't a child who exaggerated. If she said she was locked up, it was true. I pressed the gas harder. The image of tiny Zoe clutching her worn teddy bear flashed in my mind, making my eyes sting. Finally, after what felt like a lifetime, I reached my parents' neighborhood. Their old wooden house loomed in my headlights, shrouded in rain. Completely dark. Not a single light. A park jumped out, instantly soaked. I pounded on the door. "Dad, Mom, open up. Where's Zoe?" No response. I banged harder, hands stinging. Only the rain answered. I ran to the back door, hoping. Bolted shut. My heart raced. Anger and fear mixing into a sickening cocktail. Where was Zoe? If my parents weren't home, how did she call? If they were home, why no answer? I didn't think. I grabbed a large rock from the yard and smashed a side window. The shattering glass drowned out the thunder. I cleared the shards, climbed inside. The familiar smell of old wood and musty air. But brought no comfort. "Zoe," I shouted, flipping the light switch. No power. Darkness swallowed the house. Only my phone's flashlight casting eerie beams. I searched the first floor. Living room, kitchen, dining room. Empty. My mind reeled. Where was Zoe? Where were my parents? I raced up the stairs, 2 at a time, calling her name. In the second-floor hallway, a faint sound. A soft whimper. I froze. My heart hammered. "Zoe, where are you?" The whimper came again. From the small room at the end of the hall, the one my parents used as a storage closet. I ran to it, pushed the door. Locked. "Zoe." I banged on the door, my voice ragged. A weak voice answered from inside. "Uncle Elias, I'm in here." I didn't hesitate. With all my strength, I kicked the door. The weak hinges gave way. In the dim light of my phone, I saw her, curled up in the corner on the cold floor, with only a thin blanket. Pale, sunken cheeks, hollow eyes, her small hands clutching her teddy bear as if it were the only thing anchoring her to the world. "You finally came to get me," Zoe whispered, her voice so faint I had to kneel to hear her. I scooped her up. Her body was frighteningly light, as if she had no strength left. "You're okay now, Zoe. Uncle's here." My voice broke. She trembled in my arms, ice cold. I looked around the room. No bed, no food, just a few crumbs of dry bread scattered on the floor. An old, cheap phone lay in the corner. She must have used it to call me. Rage surged hot and blinding, but I suppressed it. Not now. I carried Zoe downstairs, wrapping her in my jacket, shielding her from the still falling rain. "Uncle's taking you to the hospital, okay?" Zoe nodded weakly, her head resting on my shoulder. I rushed to the car, placed her in the back, draped a blanket over her. The rain soaked my clothes, but I felt no cold. Only panic and the burning anger in my chest. I drove to the nearest Nashville hospital, calling Hannah on the way. "Hannah, I found Zoe. She's not okay. I'm taking her to the hospital." Hannah gasped. "Oh my God, what's wrong? Where are your parents?" I gritted my teeth. "I don't know. They're not home." At the hospital, I carried Zoe into the emergency room. Nurses rushed over, wheeled her away. I stood outside, drenched, staring through the glass. A nurse approached me. "Are you the child's relative?" I nodded. "I'm her uncle, Elias Turner." She jotted something down. "We'll check on her. Please wait." I sank into a waiting room chair, my hands trembling. The image of Zoe curled up in that locked room haunted me. Where were my parents? How could they let this happen? The stipend. Their promises. Were they all lies? I called them again. No answer. I texted Hannah to stay with Rocky, that I'd update her. But in my heart, I knew everything had changed. The dark house, the locked door, and Zoe, the little girl I loved like my own, left starving and terrified. I swore to myself that no matter what, I wouldn't let Zoe suffer anymore. The hospital was brightly lit, but the atmosphere felt chillingly cold. I couldn't shake the memory of finding Zoe, a tiny bird with broken wings. Where were my parents? How could they? The questions bored into my mind, each one a stab. A doctor, Dr. Apollo Patel, with kind but serious eyes, emerged. "Are you Elias Turner?" I shot up. "How's Zoe, doctor? Is she okay?" He gestured for me to sit, then sighed. "I'll be straightforward. Zoe's condition is serious. She's suffering from chronic malnutrition, prolonged starvation, and physical exhaustion. There are also signs of psychological distress, likely from extended neglect." His words hit me like a physical blow. Chronic malnutrition, prolonged starvation, psychological distress. I shook my head, struggling to breathe. How? How could this happen? She lives with her grandparents. They get a stipend to care for her. How could she be starving? Dr. Patel looked at me with sympathy. "I don't know your family's circumstances, but this didn't happen overnight. Zoe has been malnourished for a long time, possibly months, even a year. She's severely underweight, deficient in vitamins, and her mental state is unstable." My mind reeled. Zoe's gaunt frame, her hollow cheeks, her lost eyes. The time she whispered, "I want to live with you, Uncle." And I just smiled, pat her head. Robin saying, "Zoe's picky." Stone insisting she's fine. I had seen the signs, but I chose to trust them. Now, the doctor's words tore through the facade of lies I'd built for myself. I had failed Zoe. I had let her suffer in silence. "Doctor," I whispered, my voice thick with unshed tears. "Will she be okay? She's everything to me." Dr. Patel placed a hand on my shoulder. "We'll do our best. Zoe's young. Her body can recover, but she needs proper care, both physically and mentally. You should contact Child Protective Services. This situation, it shows signs of serious neglect." Neglect. The word echoed, sharp as a blade. I looked through the glass door at Zoe, and 4-line in her arm. So small, so fragile. I wondered what she had endured. Days, months of being neglected, locked in a dark room, hungry, afraid. And my parents, Stone and Robin, the people I trusted, what had they done with the stipend meant for her? Robin's new handbags, the big screen TV, Stone bragging about dinners out. The $500 monthly stipend was supposed to buy food, clothes, school supplies. Now I saw the bitter truth. They had spent it on themselves. My nails dug into my palms. Rage surged, but I suppressed it. Zoe needed me to be calm. I pulled out my phone and texted Hannah. "Zoe's malnourished. It's bad. I'm at the hospital. She replied instantly. My God, Elias, how did it come to this? I'll come see her tomorrow. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. Robin. My heart tightened, but I answered, my voice icy. Mom, why are you calling so late? Robin's voice was rushed, hesitant. Elias, where are you? Have you seen Zoe? Your dad and I went to a friend's party, and when we got back, she was gone. The side windows broke in two. I was stunned. A party? They left Zoe alone in a locked house to go to a party? It was unthinkable. I wanted to scream, to drive back and confront them, demand the truth. But I held back, feigning ignorance. What do you mean Zoe's missing? You left her home alone. I emphasized each word, struggling to keep my voice steady. Robin fumbled. Well, we thought she was asleep. We were only gone for a bit. Have you seen her? We saw your missed calls. Did you take her? I heard Stone in the background gruff. Tell Elias not to make a big deal out of this. I clenched my jaw, seeing their blatant deceit. They weren't worried about Zoe. They didn't know she was lying in a hospital, too weak to sit up. They just wanted to cover it up to save face. Mom, I said, my voice trembling with controlled anger. How could you leave Zoe alone? She's 6. You knew she was frail. Why weren't you home taking care of her? Robin faltered, her voice rising. Elias, you're talking like we abused her. We just stepped out. Zoe's well-behaved. Stone cut in, his tone sharp. You dare blame us? You're too busy to care for her, so don't lecture us. I was speechless. Not a word of apology. Not a hint of concern. Only blame and pride. I wanted to scream into the phone, tell them Zoe was fighting for her life because of their neglect. But I stopped myself. If I spoke now, they'd find ways to dodge. I had to protect Zoe first. Fine, I said, my voice cold as ice. I'll look for Zoe. You two should look for her, too. If you find her, call me immediately. I hung up before they could respond. Standing in that hospital hallway, I felt like my world had collapsed. My parents, the people who raised me, whom I trusted, had betrayed Zoe, betrayed Jetson. They hadn't just neglected her. They'd used her stipend to live comfortably while she starved and trembled in a locked room. I looked back at Zoe through the glass. A nurse was checking her monitor, her eyes full of pity. Zoe, I won't let you suffer anymore. But I knew, to keep that promise, I'd have to face the horrifying truth about my family. My parents weren't just indifferent. They had abandoned Zoe. I had to act, not just for her, but for my own conscience. I called Hannah. Hannah, they left Zoe alone to go to a party. I'm calling the police. She can't stay with them anymore. Hannah sobbed. Elias, how could they? Whatever you do, bring Zoe to us. I nodded, though she couldn't see. I will. I promise. I hung up and looked at Zoe again. Frail but alive. That was my only glimmer of hope. The road ahead would be rough. My parents wouldn't let go easily. They'd blame me, fight to save face. But I was resolute. Zoe would never return to that house. Never. Sitting in that hospital hallway, it felt like I was in the eye of an endless storm. The machines hum was constant reminders Zoe was fighting. But I knew the real battle was just beginning. I took out my phone, took a deep breath, and called the Nashville police. Nashville Police Department. How can I assist you? I tried to keep my voice calm. I want to report an incident. My niece, Zoe Turner, 6 years old, was left alone at her grandparents' house. I went to check. The house was locked. No one was there, and she was missing. I paused, choosing my words carefully. I didn't mention I'd found her, or that she was in the hospital. Not yet. I needed time to gather evidence, to ensure Zoe's safety before my parents found out. The officer asked for details, address, description of Zoe, information about her grandparents. I answered briefly, my voice stiff, masking the rage boiling inside me. We'll send someone to check immediately, he said. Can you come to the station to provide more information? I agreed, but my mind was already forming a different plan. I couldn't just sit and wait. I needed the truth, the full truth, about what had happened to Zoe over the past 2 years. The $500 monthly stipend. My parents' promises to care for her. It was all a lie. Now, I had to find evidence to protect Zoe, to ensure she never had to return to that house. I looked through the glass door of the emergency room. Zoe was still there, and 4-line in her arm, her small face pale, but calmer now. A nurse came out. She's more stable, Mr. Turner, but she'll need to stay for a few days for monitoring. I thanked her, but my heart was heavy. I needed to act quickly before my parents realized Zoe was here. I started thinking, their bank accounts, how the stipend was spent. I drove back to my parents' house. The rain had stopped, but the sky remained dark. The house was still pitch black, no lights on. They were probably out looking for Zoe, or pretending to. I entered through the broken window. Inside, the familiar smell of old wood and mildew hit me, but now it sent a shiver down my spine. I turned on my phone's flashlight and went straight to Stone's desk in the living room. He always kept important documents there. I rummaged through, found a stack of bank statements. My heart raced as I flipped through the pages. Their account showed the monthly stipend, $500 as expected. But the transactions that followed made my blood boil. Cash withdrawals, shopping at malls, restaurant bills, even a short trip to Memphis. No trace of purchases for food, clothes, or school supplies for Zoe. I snapped photos of every receipt, my hands trembling with anger. The money meant to nurture Zoe had been squandered on my parents' luxuries. I kept searching, moving to Robin's wardrobe. Their new handbags, expensive shoes, a fur coat she'd once bragged about getting on sale. I thought of Zoe's lost eyes, her frail body, and felt like someone was choking me. They had let Zoe star while using her money to live lavishly. I photographed everything, carefully noting each detail. This would be evidence. But I needed more. I decided to talk to the neighbors. The house next door belonged to Cheryl, an elderly woman who often sat on her porch knitting. I knocked on her door, though it was nearly 2 a.m. Cheryl opened it, her eyes surprised but filled with concern. "Elias, what's going on? I saw you break into your parents' house earlier." I took a deep breath and briefly explained finding Zoe, careful not to mention the hospital. "Cheryl, have you heard anything strange from their house?" About Zoe, Cheryl sighed, her eyes heavy. "Elias, I don't want to speak ill of your parents, but I've heard Zoe crying a lot, especially at night. Once, I heard Robin scold her, telling her to be quiet. Stone would yell, saying she was naughty. She looked so thin. I brought over some cookies once, but Robin wouldn't let her take them." She paused, her voice trembling. "Did you ever see them leave Zoe alone?" Cheryl nodded. "Many times. They'd go out at night, leaving her at home. I was worried, but I didn't dare interfere." Her words were another stab. I thanked her, promised to return, and went back to my car. My mind reeled as the pieces fell into place. Zoe wasn't just neglected. She was scolded, left alone in the house that was supposed to be her home. But I needed more evidence, especially from her school. The next morning, I called Maplewood Elementary, the school near my parents' house. I spoke with Zoe's teacher, Rebecca Allen. "I'm Elias Turner, Zoe Turner's uncle. I'd like to know about her school performance." Ms. Allen hesitated. "Mr. Turner, Zoe is enrolled, but she's barely attended class. She's been absent for over 90% of the school term." My heart sank. How is that possible? Didn't her grandparents say anything? Ms. Allen sighed. "We sent multiple warnings, but got no response. I called once, and Robin said Zoe was often sick, but never provided medical records. We were very concerned, but we couldn't intervene further. I asked Ms. Allen to send me Zoe's school records. She agreed. That afternoon, an email arrived with the documents. The records confirmed it. Zoe had attended only a few days at the start of the year, then was almost entirely absent. Teacher notes described Zoe as withdrawn, quiet, appearing tired. Reading them, my eyes stung with tears. Zoe wasn't just neglected at home. She'd been deprived of education, socialization, the chance to live like a normal child. I returned to the hospital, carrying the evidence I'd gathered. Bank statements, photos of Robin's luxury items, Cheryl's testimony, Zoe's school records. Zoe was still in the recovery room, but the doctor said she was more alert. I sat by her bedside, holding her hand. "Zoe, Uncle's here. You won't have to go back there," I whispered. Zoe looked at me, her eyes still fearful, but she nodded weakly. "Uncle, I don't want to stay with Grandma and Grandpa anymore," she said, her voice faint as a breeze. I hugged her, vowing to myself I'd do everything to bring her to my family. I knew what came next. I needed a lawyer. to file a case to gain custody of Zoe. My parents wouldn't give up easily. They'd fight, not out of love for Zoe, but for their pride and the stipend. But I was ready. For Zoe, I wouldn't back down. I started looking for a lawyer. Hannah recommended Jennifer Lawson, a sharp family law attorney in Bowling Green. I scheduled a meeting with her the next morning, bringing all the evidence I'd gathered. My parents' bank statements, photos of Robin's luxury items, Cheryl's handwritten testimony, and Zoe's school records. Jennifer, a blonde woman with piercing eyes, flipped through each page, her brows furrowing. "Elias," she said, her voice low, "this is serious. This evidence clearly shows neglect. The bank statements, in particular, are compelling. The stipend was obviously not used to care for Zoe." I nodded, trying to suppress my anger. "Jennifer, I just want Zoe to be safe. She can't go back to her grandparents." Jennifer looked at me, her gaze softening. "Understand. We'll file a custody lawsuit. You're a direct relative with a stable job and family. Your chances are strong." Jennifer got to work immediately. She prepared the lawsuit, detailing everything: Zoe's malnutrition, educational neglect, the neighbor's testimony, and the misuse of the stipend. I provided more information about my family, about Jetson, and Zoe's circumstances over the past 2 years. Each time I recounted the story, it felt like someone was squeezing my heart. I had let Zoe suffer for too long, all because I trusted my parents. Now I had to make things right. A week later, the lawsuit was filed with the Nashville Family Court. I received notice that my parents would be served with a summons within a few days. I knew that once they received it, things would explode. Sure enough, that evening, my phone rang. It was Robin. Her voice was icy, a stark contrast to the faint concern from a few days earlier. "Elias, what kind of nonsense are you pulling? You're hiding Zoe, and now you dare sue your own parents? Who do you think you are, accusing us of neglecting her?" I took a deep breath, keeping my voice steady. "Mom, I'm not making accusations. I have proof. Zoe was malnourished, locked in a room, abandoned." "How do you explain that?" Robin's voice sharpened. "You're making this up to get the stipend, aren't you? You want to steal her from us for the money." Her words cut like a knife, but I wasn't surprised. I knew my parents. Everything revolved around money and pride. Stone grabbed the phone, his voice booming. "Elias, if you don't drop this lawsuit, we'll disown you." I gripped the phone tightly, my heart pounding, but my voice remained cold. "Dad, I won't drop it. I'm doing this for Zoe, not for money. If you really loved her, why did you let her starve? Let her tremble in fear in a locked room?" They hung up, leaving me with a long, cold beep. The air of my family, already fractured, now shattered completely. I sank onto the sofa, my mind reeling. Hannah hugged me from behind, whispering, "You're doing the right thing, Elias. Zoe needs you." I held her hand, feeling like I was clinging to a lifeboat in a storm. The following days were a blur of tension. My parents called repeatedly, sometimes threatening, sometimes feigning apologies. "Elias, you misunderstood," Robin said in one call, her voice softer. "We only went to that party once. Zoe was fine." I didn't respond, just hung up. I couldn't trust them anymore. Every time I heard their voices, I remembered Zoe curled up in that dark room, her trembling voice over the phone. "Uncle, I'm so scared." I told myself that no matter what they said, I wouldn't waver. Zoe deserved a real home. I would do everything to give her that. Jennifer called me to her office a few days later. "The court has set a hearing date 3 weeks from now," she said. "Your parents have hired their own lawyer, and they're trying to dismiss the neglect allegations. They claim Zoe was just sick, and you're exaggerating to gain custody." I shook my head, unsurprised. "Jennifer, I have evidence. The doctor, the neighbor, the school, they all confirm the truth." Jennifer nodded. "Exactly. We have a strong case, but brace yourself. The hearing won't be easy. Your parents and family dynamics will make this more complicated." I knew she was right, but every time I thought of Zoe, I knew I had no other choice. I visited Zoe at the hospital every day. She was starting to eat small amounts of porridge, but remained quiet. I told her how Rocky was worried about her, about our house in Bowling Green, about Hannah's garden. "You'll love it there," I said, ruffling her hair. Zoe gave a faint smile. the first time I saw a spark in her eyes. That was my motivation to keep going. The day of the hearing arrived. The atmosphere in the Nashville courtroom was heavy, like the sky before a storm. I sat at the plaintiff's table next to Jennifer, clutching the stack of evidence tightly. Across from us, my parents sat upright, their gazes icy. Stone wore an old suit, trying to maintain an air of dignity, while Robin kept wiping her eyes as if playing the role of a grieving grandmother. Their lawyer, a middle-aged man with a smooth voice, looked at me as if I were a traitor. Zoe wasn't present. Jennifer said it was better for her mental state, but I felt her presence in every moment. Judge Franklin Moore, a tall man with a stern face, struck his gavel. "Let's begin," he declared. Jennifer stood up and presented the case. Zoe's malnutrition, educational neglect, the misuse of the stipend, the neighbor's testimony. She called the first witness, Dr. Apollo Patel. He took the stand, his voice calm and steady. Zoe Turner suffered from chronic malnutrition, prolonged starvation, and shows signs of psychological distress due to extended neglect. This condition didn't develop in a few days. It's been ongoing for months, possibly a year. My parents' lawyer tried to counter. "Doctor, could it be that the child was just sick or a picky eater?" But Dr. Patel shook his head. "No, this is evidence of severe lack of care. A 6-year-old cannot cause this condition herself." I looked at my parents, hoping for a trace of remorse. But Robin only lowered her head, and Stone frowned as if angry. The next witness was Cheryl, the neighbor. She took the stand, her voice trembling. I heard Zoe crying many times, especially at night. Mr. and Mrs. Turner often left her alone, going out until late. I once brought food over, but Robin wouldn't let Zoe take it. Their lawyer tried to twist her words. "You only heard crying. Kids can be whiny, right?" But Cheryl stood firm. "No, it wasn't whining. Zoe was scared, and I was worried for her." Rebecca Allen, Zoe's teacher, was next. She presented the school records, showing that Zoe had been absent for over 90% of the school term. "We sent warnings, but received no response from Mr. and Mrs. Turner," she said. Zoe was barely attending school. Judge Moore took notes, his expression growing more serious. Jennifer presented the receipts, highlighting my parents' extravagant spending. Handbags, dinners, a trip to Memphis. The $500 monthly stipend was meant to care for Zoe. But there's no evidence it was used for that purpose, she argued. My parents' lawyer countered, claiming they had cared for Zoe and that I was stealing her for the stipend money. Jennifer fired back sharply. "Mr. Turner has a stable job and family. He doesn't need the stipend. He just wants his niece to be safe." It was my turn to take the stand. I looked directly at the judge, my voice trembling but resolute. "Your Honor, I'm not doing this for money. I'm doing this for Zoe. She was locked in a room, starved, denied an education. I'm her uncle, and I want her to live in a safe environment where she's loved." I glanced at my parents, hoping they'd lower their heads in shame. But Stone glared at me, and Robin turned away. My parents took the stand next. Robin sobbed, claiming they loved Zoe and that she was just sick. Stone accused me of making up stories to tear the family apart. But the evidence was overwhelming. Judge Moore called for a recess, then returned with his ruling. Based on the evidence and testimonies, he said, "This court grants custody of Zoe Turner to Elias Turner. Mr. and Mrs. Stone and Robin Turner will be monitored by Child Protective Services, and the foster care stipend will be terminated." The courtroom fell silent. Robin burst into tears, but I knew it wasn't for Zoe. It was for her pride. Stone stood up, pointing at me. "You'll regret this, Elias. You're no longer my son." I looked at him, saying nothing. My heart ached, but I had no regrets. I had chosen Zoe, and it was the right choice. After the hearing, Jennifer patted my shoulder. "You did well, Elias. Zoe will be safe with you." I nodded, but my heart was still heavy. My family was broken, but I had no other choice. I drove back to the hospital where Zoe was waiting. I sat by her bedside, held her hand, and said, "Zoe, you're coming home with Uncle. Everything will be okay." She smiled faintly, hugged me tightly, tears streaming down her face. The feeling of Zoe's small hands clinging to me, weak but full of trust, warmed my heart. I knew that from now on, I wasn't just Zoe's uncle. I would be her second father. A few days later, Zoe was discharged from the hospital. Dr. Apollo Patel gave me detailed instructions. She needs a special diet and regular psychological monitoring. Her mental state is still fragile, but with love and care, she'll recover. I nodded, committing every word to memory. As I carried Zoe to the car, she hugged her old teddy bear, looking out the window with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. "Am I going to meet Aunt Hannah and Rocky soon?" she asked, her voice tiny. I ruffled her hair. "That's right. They're waiting for you at home." The drive from Nashville to Bowling Green was strangely peaceful. I turned on the radio, choosing a cheerful children's song, hoping to help Zoe relax. She gave a faint smile, and I knew I was doing the right thing. When we arrived home, Hannah and Rocky were waiting at the door. Hannah ran out and hugged Zoe tightly. "Welcome home, Zoe." Rocky, with a wide grin, held up a small ball. "Zoe, I'll teach you how to play soccer." Zoe was shy, but her eyes lit up at the warm welcome. I looked at Hannah, feeling her unconditional love for Zoe. "Thank you," I whispered. Hannah squeezed my hand. "We're a family, honey. Zoe is our daughter." The first few days, Zoe was still scared. At night, she often woke up for nightmares, crying for me or Hannah. One night, I rushed into her room and found her curled up in the corner of the bed, clutching her teddy bear, whispering, "I'm scared. They'll lock me up again." I held her, soothing her. "No one will lock you up anymore, Zoe. Uncle's here. Aunt Hannah's here. Rocky's here. You're safe now." Gradually, Zoe began to trust us. The nightmares became less frequent, but I knew the wounds in her heart would take time to heal. I took Zoe to see a psychologist, Dr. Allison Pierce, a gentle but professional woman. During therapy sessions, Zoe slowly opened up, sharing about her time with my parents. The day she was left hungry, locked in a room, scolded for crying. Each story was like a knife to my heart. "Uncle Elias, I just wanted to make Grandma and Grandpa happy, but I always did something wrong," Zoe said, her eyes welling with tears. Dr. Pierce reassured her. "Zoe, you didn't do anything wrong. You deserve to be loved." I sat outside the room, listening through the door, my heart breaking. But I also felt hope. Zoe was slowly regaining her confidence. At home, we tried to give Zoe a normal life. Hannah cooked nutritious meals, from chicken soup to homemade cookies, to help Zoe gain weight. Rocky became her best friend. He was always protective. One day, I saw Rocky holding Zoe's hand, leading her to the backyard to play soccer. "Don't be afraid. I won't let you fall." Zoe laughed loudly, the first time I heard her clear, carefree laugh. Those moments, Hannah singing lullabies, Rocky playing with Zoe, our family gathered around the dinner table, were medicine for both Zoe and me. I enrolled Zoe in Rocky's elementary school. On her first day, she held my hand tightly, her eyes anxious. "Uncle, what if the teacher scolds me?" I knelt down, looking into her eyes. "The teacher will love you, Zoe, and Rocky will be there with you." Rocky, standing nearby, puffed out his chest. "That's right. I'll protect you." Zoe smiled, and I knew she was starting to settle in. Her teacher paid special attention, reporting that Zoe was doing well in school. Though still shy, Rocky was always by her side, ensuring no one bullied her. As the months passed, Zoe began to change. She gained weight, her cheeks grew rosier, and her smile appeared more often. Hannah and I turned the living room into a play area filled with toys and books. Every evening, we read bedtime stories, tales of courage and family love. One night, Zoe hugged me before bed, whispering, "Uncle Elias, you're the best dad in the world." My heart melted. Zoe had found her home, and I knew that despite her painful past, she had a bright future ahead. For years passed in the blink of an eye. Zoe was now 10 years old, a lively girl who loved painting and playing soccer with Rocky. She called me and Hannah Dad Elias and Mom Hannah, which filled us with both emotion and pride. Rocky, now 12, remained a devoted big brother, always looking out for Zoe at school. Our family had become a tight-knit unit, but there was still an empty space in my heart named Jetson. My younger brother, who vanished 4 years ago, remained a mystery. I Didn't know if he was alive or gone, but I always prayed he'd find peace. One autumn afternoon, while I was working on a car at the garage, my phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number. I answered cautiously. "Hello, who's this?" On the other end, a familiar voice, deeper and more mature, came through. "Elias, it's me, Jetson." My heart skipped a beat. "Jetson," I whispered, hardly believing it. Where are you? Are you okay?" Jetson gave a soft laugh, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm okay. I want to see you and Zoe. I'm in Bowling Green." I raced home, my mind in turmoil. Hannah and Zoe were in the backyard, tending to the vegetable garden. When I told them about Jetson, Hannah hugged me. "Oh my God, Elias, he's back." Zoe looked up, her eyes curious. "Dad, Jetson, is he really back?" I nodded, holding back tears. "Yes, Zoe, your dad's back." An hour later, Jetson appeared at our doorstep. He had changed, thinner, with streaks of gray in his hair, but his eyes were bright and full of life. Dressed in a sharp suit, he was no longer the man drowning in alcohol and pills 6 years ago. When Zoe ran to him, Jetson knelt down, enveloping her in a hug, tears streaming down his face. "Zoe, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for leaving you," he said, his voice breaking. Zoe clung to him, sobbing. "Dad, I miss you so much." I stood there, watching their reunion, my heart torn between joy and pain. Jetson turned to me, gripping my hand tightly. "Elias, thank you. Thank you for saving Zoe, for giving her a home." I shook my head. "Jetson, I just did what was right. You're my brother, and Zoe's your daughter." Jetson shared that over the past 6 years, he had sought therapy, gone to rehab, and then moved to California to start over. Now he was a successful entrepreneur, running a small tech company. Jetson stayed with us for a week, reconnecting with Zoe. He spent time playing with her, taking her to the park, telling her about the years he fought to overcome his pain. Zoe slowly warmed up to her father, though she still called me Dad Elias. Jetson didn't mind, only smiling. "Elias, you deserve to be Zoe's dad." And Jetson made a surprising declaration. "I'm cutting ties with Mom and Dad. After what they did to Zoe, I can't forgive them." I nodded, understanding his decision. I, too, couldn't forgive what our parents had done to their own granddaughter. The years of Zoe's neglect, hunger, and fear in that locked room had left scars not only on her, but on Jetson and me as well. But now, seeing Zoe smile brightly beside her father, I knew we had overcome the darkness to find light. Our family, once shattered, was now rebuilding from the pieces, with Zoe at the center of our love and hope. One morning, Jetson called me to the backyard. "Elias," he said, his voice low but firm, "I've decided to take Zoe to New York. My company there is doing well, and I want Zoe to have a fresh start, a new home." I looked at him, seeing the maturity and determination in his eyes. Jetson was no longer the lost brother of years past. He had found himself again, and now he wanted to give Zoe the best future possible. I nodded, though my heart felt heavy. "You're right, Jetson. Zoe deserves that. But you have to promise to take good care of her." Jetson gripped my hand, his eyes glistening. "I promise. And I'll bring Zoe back to visit you often. We're family." Zoe ran out, hugging both of us. "I'll call Dad Elias and Mom Hannah every day," she said, her voice clear and bright. I ruffled her hair, holding back tears. "We'll be waiting for your call, Zoe." On the day Jetson and Zoe left, our whole family saw them off at the airport. Zoe hugged Hannah tightly, then jumped up to hug Rocky. "Rocky, I'll miss you so much." Rocky, try to act tough, had red eyes. "Study hard, Zoe. I'll come visit you in New York." As Jetson and Zoe passed through security, she turned back to wave, her smile radiant like sunshine. I stood there watching, feeling both proud and wistful. Zoe had found safety and love, but I knew I'd miss her every day. A few days later, while cleaning my desk, I found an envelope tucked under a stack of bills. Inside was a check for $1 million, signed by Jetson. A small note accompanied it, written in his neat handwriting from our school days. "Elias, this isn't to repay a debt, because I know nothing can repay what you've done for Zoe. This is for you and Hannah to have a better life. To thank you for being an amazing brother to me and a second father to Zoe." I held the check, smiling. Jetson had truly rebuilt his life, overcoming the pain of losing his wife to become a successful, mature man. I didn't plan to use the money right away. I wanted to save it, perhaps for Rocky and Zoe's future. But that check, beyond its material value, was proof of my brother's return. Meanwhile, I heard about my parents through a mutual acquaintance in Nashville. Stone and Robin lived in isolation in their old house, rarely going out. After the trial, the local community learned the truth about their neglect of Zoe. The friends who once partied with them now kept their distance, whispering about their selfishness. Cheryl, the neighbor, told me over the phone that Robin had tried to apologize to her, but her voice was full of false remorse. They live in loneliness, Cheryl said. They know they were wrong, but their pride won't let them admit it. I didn't feel joy hearing this. Despite what they'd done, they were still my parents. Part of me ached, thinking of them, old and left behind in their own arrogance. But I didn't reach out. I had chosen Zoe, and I had no regrets. Sitting in our backyard, looking at the garden Hannah and Zoe once tended together, I reflected on everything that had happened. The fight for Zoe wasn't just a battle against my parents. It was a battle against myself, against the naivety of believing family would always put love first. I learned that true love requires sacrifice, courage, and sometimes the willingness to cut ties with toxic relationships. Zoe taught me that, with her resilient smile and the way she overcame darkness to find light. If I had any advice for anyone, it would be this: listen to your instincts. When I saw Zoe's gaunt frame and lost eyes, I chose to believe my parents' lies, and it nearly cost her future. Don't wait until it's too late. Protect the ones you love, even if it means confronting your own family. And most importantly, never give up hope. Zoe survived. Jetson returned. And I found the true meaning of family, not in blood, but in love and responsibility. What would you have done in my place? Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and what's right? Tell me what you think in the comments below. I really want to know.